Now for our next featured speaker. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Associations Forum Limited. John is one of Australia's most experienced advisors to associations and charities, a thought leader for the not-for-profit sector, and a well-sought-after speaker at association training events and conferences around the world. Since 2000, John has trained and consulted to hundreds of associations and charities, large and small, on strategic governance, board effectiveness, operations, restructuring, and financial issues. John strongly believes that the freedom to associate is a core foundation of democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Peacock.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just trying to get my time zones right. Yes, it's just afternoon here in Sydney, Australia, and I'm delighted to be with you today. I'll be sharing my screen in a moment to spend the next hour or so with you, well, an hour, no longer than that, on some of the issues about successful associations. So I think to start off with, I'll see whether I can share my screen to get the PowerPoint going. There it is. It's on the wrong slide, so just bear with me a moment longer. We'll be going very soon. Okay. Thank you. Back to this. Good. Now, can I have a thumbs up or a word from the Philippines to say that you can see my PowerPoint?
Yep.
All good. Thank you. That's great. Folks, look, thank you very much for the opportunity. I have been to Association Summit a few times, maybe four. This is probably my fourth time, 3 times in person. So 4 out of 8 isn't a bad statistic for someone away. I'm a great fan of PCAAE. I'm good friends with Bobby. He welcomes me very warmly every time I come to the Philippines. Great to know Charlie and all the board, and Sandy and the team, and I'm a great fan of the wonderful Philippines. So I'm going to talk today about successful associations, and I'm talking on more things than I think I was originally planning to talk on, because I was putting my slides together and I thought of these other ideas. So that's good. We're not a law firm. Tell you a little bit about us. We are a membership body, a commercial membership body, and we give advice, information and training to associations. And in Australia, we have 500 associations as our members. So that's that. Now, we still do, like you and I, Bobby kindly sent me your magazine, your online version of your magazine this week. And we also do an online publication. We do a printed publication. We really do. I should have it here to show you, but we actually do our printed publication. And that's something that you should consider in your communications and your member services and your profitability. If you can make a profit from a magazine, it's a great thing to do. But the circle of the 6 points show you the sort of things that we do as an organisation. But I won't say too much about those at this point in time. A little bit about me. I am a farmer's son from 400 kilometres west of Sydney, and I say here that I am from a family of joiners. By that I mean that I think I went ahead another slide too quickly there. There you go. When I was a lad, it was normal to join things and get actively involved. But these days, again, you need to remember that people don't generally join unless they've got a good reason to do so. So you need to make sure you have the right product offerings as well. I worked in London in my 20s for Ernst & Young. And back to my thing about being a joiner myself, I was on the board of a student group, professional boots, community groups and alumni associations. I started my career at the Chartered Accounting Body, one of the 2 major brands of certified and credentialed accountants in Australia. And then I was a middle fish in a big pond, and then I was a big fish in small ponds. And then I've been CEO of Associations Forum for 16 years. It was established to provide information, training, advice to associations, and we do I thoroughly enjoy but I really urge all of you, and I know Bobby has been to a number of overseas activities, and Charlie as well, and other members. But it's a great thing if you're an association professional to have the opportunity to go and see how it works in other countries, because I know I've learned a great deal from that experience. Associations, I've got three, I think, preliminary slides that I will just mention. And as you can probably see behind me, which way? This way, I'm not sure. Other way, I'm just getting my angles right. The banner, Associations Advance the World. We strongly believe that, and do remember all the little things that every association in every city, in every province, in every nation, all add up to a better world because of the work that we do. We don't do it for the profitability of owning that organisation, but we do believe we're certainly at Associations Forum. We believe in private enterprise, but associations are different. It's where a group of people get together for a common cause, and they do it. All the work that they do is done quietly. I've got here the term associations are quiet achievers. And by saying that, I mean that we are not as famous as charities, but we do wonderful work. And one of the reasons that associations are not as famous as charities, UNICEF, Red Cross, World Vision, and Oxfam and Médecins Sans Frontières, is that we make our own money from our membership subscriptions, and we make our own money from our events and conferences. And that means that we don't need to go through public fundraising campaigns to do it. So we are not, the other important thing to say about being quiet achievers is that the things that we do aren't probably as exciting as saving sick animals, looking after people in disaster recovery area, in areas devastated by natural disasters, in helping the aged or orphans or refugees. Now, they are all wonderful causes, but the causes that associations represent are usually not as noteworthy, and you don't get teary-eyed when you think about the good work what an association does, but it is vital and it is very important. So we've got 7 things here that quickly to look at that we think most associations provide knowledge and training, set standards, have fellowship and camaraderie. They recognise their members and they award people, do things in some ways to reward them. They have activities and projects, and there's economic and growth opportunities. So those are the sort of standard things that you will find an association does. The next slide is a very positive slide, which is the association sector is strong. Associations have always been around since human civilization, and they will always be here because humans seek higher standards, and they also want to connect with people with the same interests of their own. And if an association does not set the standards for its industry or its profession, you will find that the governments will come in and decide, well, we think we will set those standards ourselves. So you may as well be your own self-regulatory body if you can be, rather than waiting for a government to come in and take over. Younger members join, but with different needs and in different ways. So I strongly believe that young members are joining associations, but you need to have mobile apps, you need to have good websites. They expect things to be done instantaneously, and some associations have been a little bit slow by having a long and convoluted process to get people to join, and that's not good enough. You've got to be able to attract young members in that way. Number 5, one of the very important things I'll say today is that they are growing financial reserves as there are no dividend distribution. I'll mention this a little bit later in my 11 points. But associations do not have shareholders and they do not have to give out dividends. And that is why you will be surprised, but your associations will actually get wealthy over a period of time. Some of you will have many thousands of pesos in the bank, and that's a wonderful thing. But you will find that they will grow because every year you make a profit, it means that increases the reserves of the organisation. A quick thing is that mergers happen. Don't need to say too much about that, but there have been more mergers in associations land during the pandemic because people are starting to say maybe we should be doing maybe we shouldn't be doing things solo in our own way. So that's a good thing. And boards are getting better now. Boards or councils or committees, whatever the names are, we'll talk more about governments in a while. They're getting better. People are saying we want to know our role. Great CEOs are being employed. They are dynamic, and as you'll see later in the presentation, they should be left alone relatively to run the organisation. We do not like boards who micromanage their chief executive. It's got to be the chief executive has to be tasked to run the organisation. They have to set the plan. The plan has to be approved by the board, or hopefully rubber stamped or tweaked by the board. And then it's up to the CEO and the staff to run the organisation. And my final point on this slide is don't forget that there's a lot of competitors out there. If you're not leading the game, if you're not doing the things that are going to attract the members, keep them retained, then you won't find it's any trouble at all to have a commercial organisation, or another association can spring up and try and take your market. So the sector is strong. A few things about COVID-19. Now, I'm not going to talk about any of these today. We all hear a lot about COVID-19, and there's not much we can do about it other than, as I think the theme of this session is, to somewhat be agile, but we won't be talking about that today. And that means that the slides are going to be available. And if there's anything we can say on that, that's fine. Now, this is what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to talk about successful associations. Associations need to get their structure and governance in place and be able to grow and succeed. And we're going to be talking about purpose and boards and the importance of hiring a good CEO. But that was the words that I wrote to Bobby and the team a couple of months ago when I was invited, which I greatly appreciated the opportunity to speak today. But I've gone beyond that. Since then, I've realised there's more that I can share with you in my allocated time. And this is the first of them. The first of them is about structure and scope. And the question we've got to ask is you've got to see what is the positioning of your association, who are the members, and who is the focus of who you are providing services to. If you are not immediately clear of the scope of the organisation, then you probably are too vague in what you're doing, or you're trying to do too much. The structure, by structure we mean that if you are only in Mindanao, that's why not expand into the Visayas or Luzon or things like that. So you've got, and then you might say, well, if we're in the Philippines and doing a job in the Philippines, why don't we make ourselves a Pan-Asian association and have members from Taiwan, from mainland China, from Hong Kong, Macau, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, etc., or over to India. There's no reason that you've got to think about, are we broad enough for what we're doing? Point number 3 quickly is sometimes you need to merge. And 5 I think I've covered. But number 6, let me mention this one as well in structure. Structure is federations. Now, this is when here's a federation for you, the United Nations. Now, that you get organizations there that are groups that have a whole lot of representative members who do their own thing, and they get together for a common cause. But they're not easy to run, and I'm not advocating a one world government by any means, but it's not easy to run federations. So I'm saying that if you've got an association that has a separate association in Davao, and a separate association in Angeles, and a separate association in Cebu, and a separate association in Metro Manila, and a separate association in Iloilo, that all get together in a federal body, you will find that is harder to run than it is to have a unitary organisation with branches in all of those places. Folks, I should say also, do jump in with any questions or comments today at any time. Okay, constitutions. I'm one of these crazy people who likes nothing better than to read a constitution of an association, because if you don't get the fundamentals right in your constitution, you will find that that things do not work. This is the laws about how you the voting of the members, and it's about the voting of the members, and it's about how you get who and how you get someone to be on the board of directors, and the rights of people as a to get together and vote on a constitution. You don't, the third bullet point at the top says it's not an operations manual. It shouldn't be too prescriptive. It should be the mechanics. Probably a word that we can use more in constitutions is that it should be the mechanics of the organisation. And the topics that you will find in here are these. The objects is why you exist. And then the membership categories and voting rights. And then you've got to look at how do the members get together to actually make, to decide on things. They should get together once a year to approve the audited figures, to re-elect the board or not. And very importantly, you need, it comprises the board of directors. So the situation of the things in the board of directors are that you've got to decide how many are on the board, how long they stay, and who the office bearers are. A few tips that aren't on this slide for you are that we say you should only have about 8 or 9 people on the board. If you are moving into double figures in your association, you've got too many people on the board. We also say that you shouldn't elect all of the board every year. You should stagger it, so you elect a half the board every year, 3 people in one year, every odd year, 3 people in every even year, for example. Or you might say it's a 3-year term and we elect 9 on the board and we'll elect 3 of those every year for a 3-year term. That means that you know exactly who's coming up for election, and it stops the chance of all of the board leaving at the same time, which is not good for continuity. We also say that your constitution should have, and I'll come back to the figure of 9 on the board. Well, I think I'll probably choose 8. 8 is probably my preferred number to be on a board, or 7 or 8. I think 9's getting a bit big, believe it or not. But if you have 8 people on the board, you could elect 6 of them, 3 every year for a 2-year term, and then you have the option of another 2 years, another 2 directors who can come and go according to who the board wants to be there. So a question for you today is, perhaps associations have too much democracy, and that means that maybe you need to think of a process by which you have a nominations committee and that people get onto the board in that way. So you've got to think very carefully about your constitution and why you've got these people on there. So we love reading constitutions. I've read various constitutions of associations in the Philippines, and if you want some feedback on your constitution, do let me know. My email is at the end of this session, and we would be fine. We would love to do that. It's one of the services we offer our members, but happy to extend that to our friends as well. Right, now number 3 is governance. Now, whoops, you want to number 4. Now back to number 3, governance. Governance is when the board of directors is there to see that things are going along smoothly and in the right direction. Governance is not management. Now, you have organisations in PCCAEE, you've got Charlie is the head of the board, he's in charge of governance. Bobby is the chief executive, and he is the he's in charge of management, and you need to know who does what. But some more things about governance are that you need to make sure you follow the laws of the land. And one of the things I like about the Philippines structure is that all of your associations are under the company's code of the Philippines, which means that you have to follow the same rules that a company would have to do if it was a commercial company. And I think that is an advantage. You need to know what directors' responsibilities are, which is, to be honest, not have conflicts of interest, and to act in the interests of the organisation. Those are the things that you'll find out in the governance. And then number 2 in this slide, you've got to make sure that everyone knows their roles and their responsibilities and their duties. That everyone has to know, when I'm on the board, I am not in charge of the membership campaign. This is assuming that you have paid staff, which is what we obviously hope you will aspire to. But you need to realise that the roles of the board is very, very different to being a manager in the organisation. The other ethical component, I guess, is that the people on that board, they have to act in the interest of the association, not in the interest of themselves or the people who elected them to the board. Once you're on the board of the association, your interest should be for the association and not for another body. Number 4 is just that, I think I've probably covered this. The board governance and the managers manage. Don't need to say that again. The board should have a supportive, respectful, yet an accountable relationship with their chief executive officer. You need to be in a situation where I've just moved slides again, where you've got the right relationship. And a comment that we would also make is you should not be best friends. If you're on the board, it's an advantage not to be best friends with the chief executive, because it clouds your judgment on things. So you need a respectful, healthy distance between the chief executive and the members of the board. So friendship, yes, don't be BFF with them, which I think I know what that means. Board operations and workload. The thing I'll say on this one is, when we're presenting on governance to boards, we say boards should not be overworked. It's always a very popular slide. And we say to people, to be on the board, you should be there for your wisdom, not for your blood, sweat and tears. You should be there to be able to give good guidance and good advice. And it shouldn't be a pain in the neck by being so onerous. Yet at the same time, you will have more work to do if you discover someone is on the board. And the final thing to mention on this thing is minutes. Now, minutes are very, very important. You need to get your minutes right, because this is the recording of what the board has said. And in a legal action against you, your minutes are going to be discoverable. People will say, the judge will say to you, show me what was in your minutes, and you need to get them right. So if you're not sure, again, about doing minutes, I'd be very happy to do another session at another time for PCAAE on minutes. I'm just going to keep an eye on the chat function here to see them there. Okay, lots of internal chats. Right, staff. When sufficient and regular income. Now, staff, we think you should aspire to having and Evelyn from PRA running your association. That's what you really want. You need to, the easy thing is to pay for people who will take away some of the administrative duties. That's okay, but they still report to the board. Now, number 3, hiring an association professional is important. You need a CEO who is capable, who can lead, and is yet respectful to the board of directors in that way. So hiring an association professional is, and when that happens, this leads to number 4. The management level staff means that you have to change from management to governance. I've got a hand raised. I will come to that in a second. Thank you. So that's important. Number 5, you need good systems, position descriptions. Yeah, so this is all the straightforward things. I think you know about that, and legal employment requirements. So I think there's a question that came up. I don't know how I see if the participants, there's an attendee. I'm pressing a few buttons here to see whether I can answer that one there. Right, Emmanuel, allowed to talk. Go. I can't hear. So if Emmanuel is talking, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Okay. So I'll have to mute Emmanuel again. And then the other attendees, I think we had another hand. I thought we had another hand raised. I'll try that one more time. I think you're on mute. Unmute. No. Unmute. All right, I'm sorry, I failed. I was trying to get a question from Emmanuel, but thank you very much, Emmanuel, for asking. Can't get it. If someone wants to type it out for me, I'll try again. Okay, so staff. Staff is the fourth of 11 points, and I'll just remind you what the other ones are. The first one was structure and scope. The second one was constitution. The third one was governance. Amazing, I remember them all. And now the next one is staff. So let's look at what the next thing is. These are all things that you need to be considering for your association. We'll go through them all again later. Finances. We do not like, in some countries, and I don't think it's quite as prominent in the Philippines, use the term not for profit. We don't like that term. We are not for loss. But the better term is not for dividend, but we don't like any of those terms. We are purpose-driven, for-purpose organisations, and you need some money in the bank. If any of you have people who are on your boards or governing committees who say, oh, we can't possibly make a profit, that's not our role, we're just here to make a break even, get me involved, and I will more respectfully than I'm saying now, but I will certainly talk to them about why it is imperative that you get that you make a profit. You've got to make a profit. So you've got to have point number one in number 5 is you've got to have a culture that surplus is good. If you've got money in the bank, you can innovate and you can experiment and you can take some risks. And when I'm advising an association, one of the things I ask early on, as well as their constitution, is show me your balance sheet. I want to know if you're in a bad financial situation or not. And I would also comment that not many associations in Australia, at least, are going broke during COVID, other than as we've heard from Gihan before, that Australia's had very little problem with the pandemic compared to the rest of the world. But you need, associations are generally not going broke because most of them have had money in the bank and they're able to keep performing and keep running their activities. On reserves, we obviously didn't have a very good April, May, June quarter, and certainly some other bad quarters this year. But if you've got some money there, that means you can actually do some innovation. Number 3, associations and charities must diversify. You can't rely on just one source of income. We also say, and I think this is in a later slide, most associations make most of their money from events. The profit on AS7, obviously far bigger than AS8 this year, but AS9 will come back as strongly again. But associations are in a situation that we all lost our main conference in 2020, but we had membership dues, we had other sources of income there. So it's very, very important for people to be able to do that. Now, I've got a question. Can I please utilise the Q&A tab? Thank you, sir. That was to all panelists, I think. Okay, yeah, I think maybe that was to the delegates. So, folks, do please use the Q&A tab if that's the case. Which now it's interrupting my screen, and I'll shut it. Right. So, folks, please put questions on the Q&A and try raising your hands again if that's the case. Technology. So, technology, you've got to have modern systems. You've got to have a good website. You've got to have a wonderful, intuitive database. One of the services that we introduced for Associations Forum this year is a database culture and usage review, where we say to our members, tell us how well you are using your database compared to other, and the amazing thing is that associations, some of them spend a lot of money in Australian dollars, hundreds of thousands of Australian dollars to buy technology sometimes, and they don't use it very well. You've got to have a culture, you've got to have good technology, and you've got to use it well. If you are frustrated that you're retyping things or re-entering things here, it's not good enough. You really need to be up to date and make sure that you've got a great database. The issues, database integration, got to be integrated with system. Training staff is very, very important. We spend a lot of our time, we've got about 15 or 16 staff at associations forum, and we train everyone well when they get to use the database, and procedures manuals are very important. I come back again to websites. Your websites have to be really first rate. You have the advantage in the Philippines of having some economical people who can help you develop your own websites, and they can look as good as anywhere in the world. So your websites need to be great. You've got to have fast internet speed, and you've got to have quick computers as well. Number 7, member services. Now, this is why, so I guess if you think about most of the other ones, they're sort of infrastructure type issues. Number 7, you need to have reasons that people will join you. You need to have good member services. So member offerings is why people join. And those member offerings are mainly, the core service, as point number 2 says, it's conferences, education and training, CPD meaning continuing professional development. That's what most associations of professionals, most associations of industries do. And as I mentioned earlier, conferences and exhibitions are usually the most profitable. If you have a strong positioning in your sector, you should be running the conference, and you will make even more money by going to PICC and booking it out and running an exhibition as well. So you really need to work with your members to make sure you put on a first-rate conferences and exhibitions. I'll give you another quick tip here, by the way. The richest associations in Australia were those ones who about 100 years ago started an insurance business. Now, we probably have missed the boat. There's probably too many commercial insurance companies that came around, but a few in Australia said, let's start an insurance company, and it's been so successful that those organisations are very, very wealthy. Now, these days, I reckon the number one profitable thing is an exhibition. If you're able to sell 500 booths at PICC or any of the conference centres in other ones in Manila, or in Cebu, or in Davao, or in other cities, or in Subic, and you're able to sell them, and you will make a good profit. You've got to get the traffic as well. That's why you've got to get the traffic, and that's why most conferences end up being in the bigger cities, because it's easy. People traveling, you want people to be close. Very, very important. Number 4, electronic newsletters are very, very important. They're done by nearly everyone, but they're not always noticed. Policy and lobbying, and this is also called advocacy, is done by about 90% of people as well. Yet they're not always that recognised, which is a bit of a shame unless you get a major campaign win. If you get a major campaign win, then people say, fantastic, you've really done well, and that makes you very important. Number 6 is extremely important, which is credentials. Ladies and gentlemen, credentials are things like certified, in Australia it's called certified practicing accountant, and there is another brand here called chartered accountant, which is the association that I used to work for. But if you can credential your members, they will say, I am going to be better than someone who is not credentialed. Now, if you can own that service as an association of professionals, that is brilliant. There is also that credentialing that can be done, and certifications or accreditations of businesses. It's not quite as easy, but you should certainly be looking at that if you're an industry association. The final point on member services, and I'm keeping my eye on the time, so I can finish on the hour, is that segmentation is very, very important. You need to be able to have a database that can find out who are the people in a particular city, who are the people in a particular county, if it's in Pampanga or Rizal or whatever the particular, you've got to be able to serve and find them in that. You've got to be able to find where the people are. You might want to find people who are veterinarians who work in cities, who look after people who've got dogs and cats, and as opposed to a veterinarian who works in a rural area who will look after livestock. So you need to do that. You should also be able to say, we want to have a service and we want to do things for people who are under 35 and are relatively early in the first third of their career, or under 28 or something like that. And if you specialize, you will find that people will come to you because they really want to find out about things that are of particular interest to them. And this is in the professional sense. I'm not talking about whether you like a particular type of movie or a particular type of music. You've got to find what are the specializations that people have in their professions, in their careers. The Nurses Association of the Philippines, I know, is a very strong association. And you will find that the nurses who are theatre nurses, operating nurses, they're going to have different interests to nurses who work in a general rural clinic, and they're going to have different interests of nurses who work in a hospital setting with patients with cancer. You need to specialise. And the last point on this slide is that you need to establish special interest groups to prevent rival groups from forming. If you don't service the specializations within your sector, you will find that other people will do that. Number 8, communications. And communications to your members is really very important. At Associations Forum, with our staff of about 15, we have a communications manager, and she's busy. She does a great job, and she's busy because we're always thinking ahead. What are the messages we've got to get to our members, and how can we get our messages to our members without annoying them by talking to them too much and giving them an overkill of information? But I'll go down the list because there's some other things so I don't miss too many of these things. Websites, crucial, get them right. Most communication is still by email. E-newsletters are popular, and other emails. Don't harangue people with a daily email. It's not a good idea. I read on I think it might have been the American Society of Association Executives site recently that something about that it's 10%. I'll make up these statistics a little bit, but if it was 25% of emails get opened if they're every week, if it's twice a week, and if there's only an email a week from an association, it gets opened by 33%. But statistics along those lines. So make sure you control who looks after the emails. That's important. Social media. I'm 60 years of age, so I don't know much about social media, but I'm told by youngsters that it's actually quite popular and that we need to do more things. But the comment I would make is that some associations are ideally suited and some causes are ideally suited to social media, and others not so much. But you've got to know what you want to do on social media. If you discover your membership, your clientele, potential members aren't on social media, don't do it just for this. Don't do too much just for the sake of it. But obviously, it's a source of information for the future. Printed magazines, we are very proud, as I've mentioned, to have printed magazines. Bobby Peralta, we were very honoured to have Bobby on the cover of our magazine one time. And it was a sellout, Bobby, too, very, very popular edition. Printed magazines are great because people can flick through them. They still read them when they can during a break. They're in the luncheon rooms of associations, or I'd suggest that you could read them on the jeepney, but I find jeepneys so uncomfortable seeing. I'm 6'2" that I can't say that I've ever done any reading when I'm on a jeepney. But you will find that printed magazines, if you can do them, they're great. And you can also make money of them if your association has things to sell to members, machines and the like. That's a tip. If you can sell, if your association, the members of your association buy machines, you can have an exhibition and you can have a magazine, and you will have plenty of money. Annual reports are good. We believe that annual reports should be part of the communications mix as well, to tell people what is happening in their association over the last year. Media campaigns can also be very good, and I've seen the key awards in the Philippines at PCAAE in the past, and I've seen some of the tremendous campaigns that have been run as well. And you've got to be aware to find out whether your association is suitable for a membership campaign. And the last thing on that, communications, 3 to go after communications, but the last thing to say about this is that income can be generated. You can make money from your communications as well, but I would hark back to what I said earlier, that you're really going to make more money from your conferences and events. I have a Q&A. Sheila, can you share ideas on how to make money from association magazines? Look, it's hard for PCAAE because your members, associations don't buy machines. The only things that your members make are databases. So you should be going to Marina Bay Sands in Singapore and saying, hey, we are part of an Asia Pacific Federation in the Philippines. You should advertise in our magazine because we might end up bringing a conference to the magnificent Marina Bay Sands. I'm also a great fan of PICC, of course, where I've been many times. But you also might go to a Glue Up, Eric Schmidt's organisation, and Eric has been with me at AS 6 or 7, I can't remember which one, which is a major technology company. They've got to be paying you money to be there. IMAS is another famous brand there. So you've got to be looking at what are the things that associations buy, and then the people who sell those things, those are the ones who are going to advertise. Now, Sheila, you will always find that the hospitals that have a lot of electronic equipment or mining and construction companies will make more money because there's a lot of money in selling a bulldozer or a particularly a scanning machine or different things like that. But you're never going to make a lot of money from your PCAA magazine. We on a good year, we break even at Associations Forum in Australia, but there are some organisations who just have no chance because they might be let's invent the Butterfly Collectors Association. There is not a lot of equipment that needs to be in the butterfly collecting sector, so you'll never make much money about that. Now, Evelyn, hi Evelyn, nice to see your name pop up. Is it wise to sell electronic direct mail opportunities to sponsors? Evelyn, everyone has their price, and I think the answer is yes, but make sure you control it, charge them a lot of money for it. In principle, I don't mind, but the higher the price, the more that you can willingly say it was the right thing for us to do. And then you can also know that there's not going to be many of them. So I think the answer is yes, but make sure you charge a big chunk of money for them. Thank you for your, thank you both, Sheila and Evelyn, for your questions, and more questions are welcome. Now, next is, we're getting close, folks. 3 to go. Membership engagement. Now, I'm a great fan of membership and engagement with members. Associations Forum, we have 500 membership organisations as members, and it's growing. And we spend a lot of our time we have a wonderful membership team who contact our members, help them out, and everyone. And here's, let's say we have 3, or let's say we have 4 members and of our membership team, and they are all allocated, let's say 120, I don't know if that adds up, 125 members each. And now it's worthwhile for us to do that. And the question that you might be asking is, how can we afford that? We charge, and I have to tell you Australian dollars, we charge approximately 1,000 Australian dollars, which is probably 800 US, and I think it's $1,000. I think it's something like 30 pesos to the Australian dollar. I won't do mental arithmetic on that, but stick in dollars. But we charge that. And therefore, every time we get a happy member who renews, or might tell someone else about it, we know that when it's renewal time, we've got our $1,000 for them. So engagement is very, very important. So some more things on this. I'll just check on the chat line to see that I'm doing some good things. G'day, Amy. Nice to see you, and congratulations on your role in ASAE. Now, Q&A, I'll just check whether they're the same ones now. They're the previous ones. Okay. Now, number 9, membership and engagement. What is your percentage of possible members? In terms of membership, you've got to ask, are we scratching the surface in our membership, or do we have all the potential market? And I'll give you an example. The Australian Boarding Schools Association has every boarding school in Australia as a member, and they have 100%. And if there's a new boarding school, they usually go to them and they get them to sign up. The only reason that they would have 99% is there's been a new school developed and they haven't yet signed up. But you've got to do that. And so you've got to do some statistics. And this another statistic is number 2, ask how many members did you have, how many joined and how many left. You have to get your statistics right. And part of this is to make you figure out what do you want to do with number 6, which is the association well staffed to service and grow the members. You've got to figure out if there's no point, if you've got 100% of the membership, such as the Australian Boarding Schools Association, there is no need to have a membership growth officer, but there is going to be need for member engagement. So these are a whole lot of things here about membership, but I'll grab a few more here. A truism, number 3, it's easier to renew a member than to get a new one. But you've got to be out there and thinking, how can we go and do these things? And there's lots and lots of ways of doing this. As I've said, I'm 60. We do things relatively modern here, I hope, at Associations Forum. But one of the key things we've got is we've got a wonderful database, and we've got the names and addresses and emails and the positions and the phone numbers of non-members, so that we can contact them and eventually we'll get them all to join. But we're a long way from that at the moment. So you've got to be doing that marketing one there. Number 6. I'll do number 7 first. Number 7 is try and communicate with your members without trying to sell them something. You don't want to be always at them. They don't want to hear you from you every year just to say your membership renewal is due, or will you come to our annual scientific meeting? You need to be able to talk to them during the rest of the year. And number 6. Now, number 6 is very important. You've got to say, how do we have enough people in our membership team to get the results that we want? That is really very, very important. You have a point that's not in this slide is you've got to be charging what you're worth. You've got to be charging something for membership that actually makes them think that they're getting value for money. If you charge virtually nothing for your membership, you might find that there's not much that they don't value it as much as well. So you've got to charge what it's worth, but you should, in the Philippines, you should be charging it so that they notice when they're paying it, but they get such good service that they don't mind paying it. And you've got to have the membership team. I'm a great fan of volunteers, but I would say that they are busy with their day jobs and they do not have time to actually do the membership growth. Maybe they hate their day jobs and they spend all their time on the association. That's good news if it happened, but generally it doesn't happen. So folks, membership and engagement is very, very important. And again, if there's anyone wants to drop me a line about membership matters, I'd love to get to hear from you. Number 10 out of 11. This is about plans. Every association needs a plan and a budget. We're great. We do a lot of facilitation of strategic planning days. I've done one for PCAAE in Manila when I've been there in the past, in Makati, and it's a great thing to get everyone together and having a planning day. Something I don't have in this slide and I can probably add is that plans should really be developed by the staff, not by the board. I've heard some boards say, oh, we're the board, we set strategy. I don't agree with that. You're the board, you might approve strategy, but if you've got a capable staff, you should find that they should be saying what they want to be doing, and that the board of directors should be keeping an eye on it and saying, yep, we agree with that, or here's a suggested improvement. So you need an association aware external facilitator, someone who understands associations and has a good methodology of doing strategic planning. And you've got to structure it. You need a mission, you need 6 to 9 pillars. I might change that to 5 to 8 actually. Activities are the details of what happens to be done. I was with a medical association doing a strategic planning exercise for them 2 days ago here in Australia on an online meeting. And the doctors group, they had some great ideas, but they just hadn't structured them well. And we just put it together and we ended up with I like the expression plan on a page, but usually we end up with plans on 2 pages, and that's okay. I think I allow myself to do a plan on 2 pages, but you've got to get the right structure. Far too many plans are complicated. They've been written by people who have been to Harvard Business School, or they work for a major organization, and they miss the practicalities. Most associations are moderately sized. You need a practical list of things to do and prioritization in it. I won't say too much more on that. I will come back to the Q&A. Yayu, hi Yayu, great to see you here. What is an acceptable churn rate for associations? Which of the engagement activities proves to be most effective? Now, that's a great question. The churn rate of the association, there is no standard, but it's what you should be measuring every year in your own organisation. I will give you an example again, that you do not find surgeons. The main body here for surgeons is the Royal Australian College of Surgeons. And the Royal Australian College of Surgeons finds that they don't have much of a churn rate dropout, because if you're a surgeon, you're a doctor and you've passed the medical exams, you've passed the surgical exams, you're there for life until you retire. So you can't compare that churn rate to a call centre. And the Philippines does it because it's customer service nature and friendly, welcoming personalities of its people. You will find that you're not going to, if you had a call centre organisation, a call centre representatives association, you would find that there's a lot of churn because people don't stay in call centres as much as they might like to. So, so it's not, you can't compare it, but you've got to look at your own organisation over a period of time, and you've got to look at parallel organisations if you can. For example, if there were 5 nurses associations, you would compare them to each other. Now, the second part of your question, which is the engagement activities proves to be the most effective, I would say the most effective one is a phone call to someone. There's nothing nicer than getting on the phone to someone saying, hello, how are you? I'm from the association. How can I help? I think that is the simplest one of them. And if you're able to go to people and say that, you will be amazed that they might love you, Trevor. But at the same way, I can probably say that engagement is probably even better if you're running a wonderful conference. So thank you, Yayu, for your question. That was much appreciated. Folks, we're now to my last slide, which is on culture. I'm just going to check the chat to see. Okay, Greta, hello, Greta, lovely to have you here. And happy Thanksgiving to you. Culture, happy, and now the last slide is culture. You've got to have a happy association. You've got to have happy and supported staff who will be keen to boost the membership. You need to demonstrate the values in execution of it. You've got to have people look at the directors on the board and they look at the senior managers and they follow it. The board culture, the board should be the culture of governance, and that's right. And it's more what we say than what we do. Look, I've thrown those points around here, but the last thing I'll say on culture is associations can be wonderful places to work because they're not pure, whilst I've said that they need to make a profit, they are not there purely to screw the marketplace, provide bad quality. They are there to provide a quality service at an appropriate price. And they should be great. And you're at the same time, you are advancing a group, a sector, a profession, an industry, a cause, a sport, and you're advancing it. So you need to have a situation where everyone realizes we're very, very fortunate to work for this association, and you need a nice boss. That's the other thing I would say. Okay. Thank you, folks. Last slide is just the list again, and I have, I think, 4 minutes to go. I shall just check. Yes, 3 minutes to go. Okay, so that was the list, folks. That's the successful associations. There's a summary. Don't get too tied up or too worried about. And whilst I know it's been tough for all of us, don't live your life around COVID. You've got to be looking at these 11 points and saying that we've got to have the right structure, a modern constitution. You should have a constitution. You don't need to check, because it's except every now and then. Governance should be the board keeping their hands off, and they should have great staff. Now, you've got to be making enough money in your finances to keep the organisation ticking over. And I love well-off associations. I was in Washington, D.C. with Greta and the team once, and I think I went to the major Builders Association of the United States, and they owned a block of land in the middle of Washington, D.C. And I said, fantastic. We like well-financed associations that can really make an impact. You've got to use current technology. Number 7, you've got to, and number 7, current technology, and most importantly of those is a good database. Member services, that's what your offerings are to your members. That's the value proposition. Communications, you've got to keep communicating to people in the right way. You've got to have members, you've got to engage with the members, you've got to be trying to grow your members if you realise that you don't have a lot. And back to Yayu's question is about churn rate. You've got to be finding out, are they just churning because they don't really want to be working in a call centre anymore? Or are they leaving because they think the association is rubbish? So you need to do a little bit of self-assessment of that sort of thing. And engagement, you really have to have your members. I think you need an association where a lot of members join because they love you. You've got to need, even beyond the services, that they will always renew because they like the association. Plans are great. You've got to have a strategic plan, and the culture, everyone has to be happy. And folks, that's it. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you today. I look forward to coming back to the Philippines and seeing you all in person sometime soon. I will now stop my sharing.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you as always for your practical insights and advice. We really value that, and for your continuing support of PCAE. And also, thank you for being a good fan of the Philippines. And based on your stories, I know you've been riding jeepneys, you've been driving around, and thank you for that. So on behalf of the board of PCAE and the secretariat, I really appreciate your talking again to us. I think this is your 4th time, and I hope we can continue working together. I still have, I owe you a certificate and a nice portrait of yourself. We will send it to you shortly. So thank you so much, and have a good day, Mike.
G'day. Thank you, Bobby, and all. Really good to see you all again, and thinking of you and miss you.
Thank you. Likewise, John. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peralta and Mr. Peacock, especially for Mr. Peacock for providing that clarity of purpose.